Good afternoon, Director of Corporate Communication. We are a group of communication interns who are tasked to do research about our company narratives and analyze our company key issue, key stakeholder, and the objective of our communication. So the agenda for our presentation will be the introduction to Ford, challenges that Ford face, and the 4 steps of stakeholder analysis. So to introduce Ford, firstly I will be briefly remind you of Ford history. So Ford was first started in 1896 and was named after the founder Henry Ford. And Henry's first invention was the quadricycle, which is the invention that leads to the existence of today's Ford company. And the first major accomplishment that is accomplished by Ford was the Ford Model T. Ford Model T was invented in 1927. During that time, most of the automobile company focuses on making a luxurious car for rich people. However, Ford perception is different. They want to make a car that is simple, durable, and affordable. And with that perception in mind, they invented the Ford Model T. And after its launch, they were able to sell over 15 million units. And this is a very successful invention for Ford company, which is the major factor which leads to their growth and becoming what it is today. And which also linked to our vision, which is to become the world's most trusted company, designing smart vehicles for a smart world. And also, Henry's perception is to make a durable, simple, and affordable vehicle is also the inspiration for our today. Mission is to drive human progress through the freedom of movement. And we are staying true to our mission by creating a affordable and accessible vehicle so that we see it as a contribution to the improvement of transportation that could enhance the quality of our lives. And moving on to the next part will be presented by Valentin, which is the challenge faced by Ford.
Thank you, Lai Heng. I'm going to be talking about the challenges that Ford has faced throughout the year. There are many challenges, but I've only chosen a few to talk about, the ones we think are the most important or the most significant. First, we have carbon monoxide and exhaust poisoning. So this is a very serious problem because it means that exhaust fumes are making their way into the car's cabin and affecting the driver and the passengers of the car. In one instance, a police officer was found unconscious in her car after being poisoned by carbon monoxide. She was in a Ford Explorer. Next, we have latch failures allowing doors to fly open. Latch are the mechanisms that allow us to lock or close the doors on cars. And these failures can be both major or minor. Most people who encounter these failures often say that the door bounces back when they try to close it. But imagine a scenario where you're riding down a highway and suddenly one of your doors flies open. This could be a major problem and could cause a big accident. Next, we have the cup seal master cylinder, which leaks. So, the cup seal master cylinder is part of the car's braking system. So it's very vital to a car. If there is leakage in this component, this means that air can get into the pipes and cause a lack of pressure in the pipes, which means you can lose some of the braking power of the car or just lose all your braking power. A car with no brakes is just an accident waiting to happen. Next, we have the electronic power assisted steering, or the EPAS, failures. All cars nowadays have an EPAS, which means that it allows the drivers to turn the steering wheel in a smooth and easy manner. So, when it's working fine, we don't notice that it's there or what it does. But once it fails, this is where the problems start. With a failed EPAS, the vehicle's direction could become stuck in one way or another. This could cause an accident when the vehicle is in motion. Finally, we have airbags recall. And this is the most important one, and this is why we chose to present on this topic, because it's the one that's led to the most controversy and the one that's led to the most injuries and accidents. So, we all know what airbags are. Airbags are safety devices that are fitted in vehicles that protects both the passengers and the drivers in case of an accident or a crash. They basically protect the passengers from impact in the event of a collision. The problems that we're having with our airbags right now are all the cars that have a Takata airbag. Takata is a famous Japanese company that supplies airbags to the biggest car brands around the world, including Ford. So what is the problem? The problem is in the inflator of the airbag, which when it's exploded or activated, shoots shrapnel or pieces of material into the passengers or the driver. And this is very dangerous because it can lead to death and injuries. 782,384 vehicles in the US alone have been recalled for this problem this year. And it is estimated to have caused 23 deaths and more than 290 injuries, including Ford cars. So these are all the different brands that are affected by this airbag recall, different models of our company. We have the Ford Mustang, 2005 to 2014, the Ford Ranger, 2004 to 2011, the Ford GT, 2005 to 2006, the Ford Fusion, 2006 to 2012, the Ford Edge, 2007 to 2010, and finally the Mercury Milan, 2006 to 2011. So how has this affected the image of our company? Well, this has gone against the vision of our company because we want to be the most trusted brand out there that's selling cars. But how can the public trust a company that put their lives in danger on a daily basis? So this is a very important problem for us. The next part I will hand over to Arthur, who will present on the 4 steps model.
Thank you, Valentin. So moving on, this is the 4-step model where it's a 4-step process where we need to identify, understand, prioritize, and create a communication plan with our stakeholders. So these stakeholders can be divided and classified into 2 categories, which are internal and external stakeholders. So for the first step, we identified our internal stakeholders to be shareholders, management, and employees, whereas our external stakeholders are leads up to 7, which are customers, regulators, suppliers, community, competitors, and lastly, media. So on to the second step, which is understanding stakeholders. This allows us to put ourselves into the stakeholders' point of view, understand their concerns and the critical issues that they may face. So for the internal stakeholders, we have shareholders, who their main concerns are the Ford's financial status. Due to the negative impact of the airbag incidents, this led to a downfall in our Ford's reputation. This led to a decrease in the stocks, which as well as a decrease in sales, diminishing revenues and profits. This in turn reduces the shareholders' earnings as well as dividends at the end of the year. The third concerns that shareholders may have is that they are also potential users of Ford vehicles, and therefore their safety is also at risk. The other internal stakeholders are management and employees. Their concerns are similar in that they may face layoffs. So these can be due to 2 reasons. The first reason is that the layoffs are led due to the due to the implementation and installation of airbags, or due to the decrease in Ford's financial status and statements, thus reducing their profit. Therefore, Ford may issue layoffs due to decreasing their costs so that they can balance out their profit from last year to this year. As for the external stakeholders, the customer's major concern is their own safety, whether they are the driver or passengers. This concern is also similar to that of regulators, where their concerns is for the safety of people, as well as upholding safety protocols. Thirdly, as my colleague mentioned earlier, is the suppliers, where we get supplied with airbags by Tanaka Company. If their airbags are the issues, then their concerns is that Ford may find alternative supplies for their airbags, and therefore thus decreasing their sales, revenue, and profit. Fourth is the community. Their major concerns is the safety of their members, of themselves and members of their community. Fifth is the competitors. if they are clients of Tanaka company as well, they may face similar issues that we are facing now at Ford. And this is the airbags incident. Another concern that they may have is that this is their opportunity to gain and expand their market share. Ford's current market share in the US is 14.4%, and therefore these competitors know that this is their time and opportunity to tackle our market share. Last but not least is the media, and their concern is to report all incidents concerning our airbag incidents, whether it's Ford or other companies. So lastly, I'll pass on to Jasper, who will finalize the presentation.
Thank you, Arthur. As we have talked about the two processes of the four-step model, going into the third process, we are going to talk about the prioritizing stakeholders. Now that we have a good understanding of who our stakeholders are and what the issue with airbag might cause concern to these stakeholders, now we have to identify, analyze, and prioritize these stakeholders. And using the salient model, we have picked three to be our definitive stakeholders, that they are customers, regulators, and shareholders. The salience model was developed in 1997 that helped us identify who are our prioritized stakeholders, and we consider them to be definitive stakeholders because they have the urgency, the legitimacy, as well as powers. Thus, when we know who is our definitive stakeholders, we must give them our immediate attention. Now, that is our fourth step into the model. Fourth step is creating an effective communication plan to reach out to all of these definitive stakeholders. The definitive stakeholders that are shareholders require private meetings and a private website that can only access by shareholders. We need them to understand the issue, and we have to show that we understand their concern as well. With regulators, we need to also conduct a private meeting so that we can have the least negative impact on the company's name as well as the company financial status. This helps us in preventing regulation that goes against our production line as well as our business model. With customers, recalls for the vehicle is required immediately. We have to do this through email by sending them private emails, as well as posting a recall action on our website. This is all for the fourth part of the model. To summarize, we have talked about the mission and the vision statement of Ford, the challenges that were faced by Ford this year, as well as the four-step model about the key stakeholder analysis. We have identified, understand, prioritize, and compose an effective communication plan. Now that we have talked about it, thank you all for listening. Is there any question?
So yes, I have a question. So could you explain more about the salient model?
Yes, so salient model was developed in 1997. It put three aspects in identifying who is the prioritized stakeholders. And the three aspects are power, legitimacy, and urgency. So power talks about how much impact does the stakeholder have on the decision, and the legitimacy talks about the legitimate relationship that the stakeholders has onto the decision. And for urgency, it talks about the degree of attention that needed for action.
So another question for your team. Among all the stakeholders, which one do you think is the most impacted?
For that, I will hand to Arthur, and he will help you answer the question.
So thank you, Jasper. So your question is, which one amongst the three would we prioritize the most? So amongst the three that we've chosen are the customers, regulators, and shareholders. And our team believes that the shareholders is the most important amongst the three because they have the most number of concerns. So the shareholders, as I mentioned earlier during the slides, is that they have three. The first concern is this financial status in terms of stocks declining. The second one is in terms of sales, revenue, and profit decreasing and thus affecting their dividends at the end of the year. Lastly is that these shareholders are potential users of Ford as well, Ford vehicles, and therefore their safety is also at risk, similar to that of the customers. Whereas regulators, they show safety for the people as well as the protocols that is in place on the road. So we believe that shareholders has the most importance because of the number of concerns that they have. Are there any other questions? So if none, thank you for being an attentive audience. This is the end of our presentation. Thank you.